It's yours truly, Ricovibes, and welcome to another edition of Take 5. Today, I've got a special edition. Now, in the Caribbean community, more so in the black community, there are certain subjects that are taboo. Now, mental health is one of those subjects. My special guest today is Richie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, man. Richie's going to talk a little bit about himself and his journey. First of all, where are you from?
Originally, I was born in Clarendon, Jamaica.
Okay.
Then, parents migrated to Bronx, New York. So, Jamaican born, but, New York bred.
Right.
Jamaican born, but, really brought up in New York in that particular facilities and everything else. But I've lived in Florida and other places. So,
Wow. Well, how old were you when you migrated here?
I was like 3, so it was a while ago.
Okay, so you a little boy.
Yeah, but in the Bronx, it's like everyone thinks that when you come over here, it's like you just completely absconded from everything back there.
True.
But it's like all the family came up, and where we lived in the Bronx, South Bronx, pretty much the whole community was Jamaican, Caribbean people, stuff like that. So you really couldn't get away from it. So you had two different worlds that you lived in.
Right. It's funny, when I moved from California to here, and I lived in the Bronx on 241st and White Plains Road for 2 weeks. And then I moved down to Linden Boulevard and Nostrand 2 weeks after that. I don't know what it was about the Bronx. I just couldn't see myself living in the Bronx.
The Bronx isn't for everybody. It takes a special breed to come from the Bronx.
Really, it's not. Wow. Talk a little bit about your journey. At what point did you realize that you suffered from mental health?
It was more when I lived in Orlando, going to high school down there. From an essay that I wrote in my health class, my teacher asked me to stay back. So I'm thinking, I'm usually, straight A student, all this other stuff. Like, why I need to stay back? She wanted to talk to me about the thing because I never knew. And it was more from that essay where I think the subject was like, something about, it was related to something with the world. But I said, really would it make a difference if I'm here or not?
Well,
and that's when, she really opened my eyes to what was really going on with me. So that was about when I was maybe 15 years old. Wow. And that's when in essence, my true journey started to begin. It was, luckily I had a teacher who cared enough and picked up on something and approached me about it. And then I was able to notice certain other things that was, going on with me.
Gotcha. What was your thought process behind, before that time, what made you came to that conclusion that you did?
It really comes down to when I was younger. I practiced what was known as suppression a lot. So I wanted to be a Vulcan. Don't laugh, but I did. A Vulcan.
From Spark? Was that Spark days? Okay. Completely, so Star Trek days.
Yes. Okay. Completely devoid of emotion. So even from primary elementary school, I learned to pretty much suppress and shut down a lot of emotion, a lot of things that were going on. So that just became a part, of who I was. So I didn't really notice or know anything different, because that's just particularly, the way that, and I programmed myself to be that way.
Take us through what happened after that, after you realized what the situation was.
I mean, then it became more of, a hiding kind of game. But, it was something that I did speak to later my mother about, because my mother, she worked as an RN for over 27 years, and particularly in the psychiatric wards in New York. Yeah.
And you never told her?
No, I told her a little bit later.
Okay.
So she would do different things, take me to see some people that she knows and things. So, there was, support from there, but still, to the rest of the world, it was very hidden. They always thought like, oh, he's very mature, very composed, very well spoken and everything else. Don't let this fool you. This is the usual, kind of conversation out there in the world where, you learn to become a great actor, because you are pretty much suppressing a lot of what you're going through and a lot of what's going on inside to put on that show to the world.
Okay. So you started going to, was it therapy or was it?
You see, back then it was a psychologist that I used to go to in Manhattan. I was on, I've been through a myriad of different medications, and really it depends on a person what kind of combination of medication will work for you. But for me, medications made me dull. And one of my greatest assets is my brain. It's a funny thing. The same thing that afflicts me is the same reason why I'm so smart.
Wow.
Because, just even give what my actual diagnosis are. I suffer from major depressive disorder. have a chemical imbalance, so I don't make enough serotonin like everyone else. It was later in life that a psychiatrist diagnosed me with sensory processing disorder, which even means how I experience the world is different than how everyone else experiences. So I could be hypo or hypersensitive to different things from one of the five senses that we have. Wow. And then just to round it out a bit, something I picked up on about 5 years ago when I went through my, year of hell, a sprinkling of anxiety on top of all of that.
Wow.
Which I didn't know was anxiety all these years until then. Like even when I used to take tests when I was, younger in school, I would just have like this, I did great on them, straight A student. But it's like just that overwhelming feeling that you would get. I didn't realize that was anxiety.
Really?
I just thought it was a part of, taking, an exam, and like everyone kind of went through it.
Gotcha. Do you know if this is a family trait, or did it start with you, or does anybody in your background that?
That's where it gets to the more complicated part. A lot of people don't realize. You don't really know until you start talking to people, because you think everyone in your family is fine.
Gotcha.
And, I'm sure there is, traits of that in my family going back. Nothing comes out of nowhere, especially if it's not something that is brought about from, there's different types of depression. There's situational depression, where there might be a divorce, loss of job, things that bring about these things. Right. But, there's roughly about 11 different types. There's seasonal affective disorder, where around the winter months, people get really depressed because they're not around people. Really? The weather is colder. Yeah, it's like once you start going down this rabbit hole of mental health, you realize how broad it is. With someone like myself, it's literally kind of made this way. So it could be from, genetics and things that are kind of passed down, but it's more prevalent within me. And like I said, it's, a gift and a curse in itself.
Wow. Fast forward to the family dynamics. How did they take it when they found out, when you told them?
Because immediate family, father really didn't engage in all that stuff, traditional Caribbean male.
Yeah.
But it was mainly my mother. And like I said, a lot of things were to keep me off the radar. I really stayed off the radar till about 5 years ago. Wow. So that was 20 plus years of no one really knowing, not even the people closest to me. Everyone would just think that I'm a regular, guy, just, hanging out, doing things here and there and stuff like that. Might disappear once in a while, not really disappear, but kind of just be to myself. Or you see, mood change, but no one ever said like, oh, he might be going through something that no one else is seeing. And that's part that, and that was one of the things. It was more because that stigma was always there. Wow. So for the most part, just kind of kept it away from everyone and suppressed it.
How did you handle that internally? That must have been a lot to go through for one person, where you can't tell anybody except for your mom, of course.
It was rough. But along the line, there was some people that I met in my life who, experienced the same thing that, able to, speak to. But it takes a lot out of you. Think about holding, like, let's say even one of those, hand weights or whatever for a long time. You're going to get tired after a while. So, emotional suppression takes a lot of energy. Presenting yourself a certain way takes a lot of energy. I know a lot of people out there can attest to that, because what we often present to the world is different than what we present in private.
Gotcha.
So it drained, and it's like you just have like this feeling of just being tired, like you really can't do it anymore. And, fast forward throughout, over 2 decades of this, you reach that, you get to that point where I got to, where it's just, between, the world the way it is, how people are, and always feeling like you don't really mesh or fit in anywhere, like, a cog that doesn't fit inside the mechanism. You just, at that particular point, you get tired, and and it's not that people are weak and just give up. It's like when you fight a battle literally with yourself every single day, every single waking moment, to keep composed, to either hide it from people, or just so, you're not, breaking down or having these major episodes. It takes a lot out of you.
Wow. What happened 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I got to that point once again where I was just tired. In the years before, in suppression, with everything, once you put it down, everything always bubble up, where I would have those explosive moments where I'm arguing with everyone from the top floor in the building all the way down to the bottom and everything else. But, through years of things like that, it just, you just get tired. It's like, you just don't want to deal with it anymore. I mean, you feel alone. And for the most part, in your own mind, because a lot of people kind of put themselves into that, separate themselves in that way. You are alone because you're not talking to anyone. So there was one night I went out. Most people know that I go out and, partake in some of the livelihoods of Atlanta. And, I went to a party and something just triggered, during that time, and, drove home, and on the way home pretty much had a complete breakdown and was just going to not make it till, the sun came up. Some people, they have plans. It's like they call suicide ideation, where they ask you if you have a plan and stuff like that. A lot of time, and more time, it's men who actually go through and, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say successfully, but they do end up taking their lives, because with us, it's going to be something that's usually more violent as opposed to taking pills, stuff like that. Right. And it's something definitely definitive where there is no coming back from it. So luckily in that instance, that night, the thought of my two sons waking up and seeing their father, dead on the couch is what really stopped me at that point.
Wow. Was that the first time you tried?
No, first time I tried to attempt suicide was by taking pills when I was in college. Was going through a lot. There was stuff going on in the family with medical conditions, and it was really hitting me hard. Mm-hmm. And with everything else that I'm trying to maintain and kind of control, and then you throw this on top of there, and it's I just had a bag of pills and took them and reached out to a family member who's going to the same university as me, and then went to sleep. And if I woke up, I woke up. If I didn't, I didn't. But as you can see, I woke up.
Wow. What are some of the signs that people should look for? Or are there signs?
There's only signs if people want to show the signs. Because like I said, nobody knew. Like even after going back, rewinding again to that year of hell 5 years ago, that's when I told even my, closest cousins. Like we grew up as brother and sister.
Wow.
All because most of my family migrated up from Jamaica roughly around the same time. Some people, a decade later, whatever. But these are like, brother, cousin, sister, cousin, stuff like that. Gotcha. Even told them and opened up to, them, about it.
And they were supportive, of course?
Oh, yeah, of course they were supportive. If people truly care about you and they truly love you, and none of that fake love like we see out in the world, stuff like that, they will be there for you. Right. So, if I ever need to, I know I can go to them. Now, it's really up to the person's choice of doing that, because there are some sort of telltale signs, but people won't really see it as that. Someone who's outgoing, always helpful. Mm-hmm. That person who is the go-to person for everyone else, that can possibly be someone who's going through it, because if they can't experience happiness on their own, I forgot the actual dictionary term, but you can actually get happiness through others. So I used to do things through others and thereby able to get that sense of, pseudo joy from them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Is there any books that you've read that you probably want to recommend to someone who's going through something like this?
Not any books that I've read. Mm-hmm. You know what, for everyone it's different, but for me, what really helped me, especially, after that point, was really looking in and starting to truly understand myself. There's plenty of TED Talks for people who don't want to read. We live in a world, instant gratification. Yeah. They're 15 minutes where there's a lot of people just like me, but they're outside the Caribbean community because we know it's taboo. Mm-hmm. Be like, oh, nothing's wrong with you. You got to pick yourself up and all this other, I don't know. Can I cuss?
Of course.
And all that. Yourself. I mean, really and truly, all that other bullshit, which really doesn't make a difference until the point where you hear about your close friend or someone in your family the next day, oh, they took their life. All of that stuff doesn't matter. The pretense that, and the arrogance that we have, like certain things don't affect us. Yeah. But here's all these other communities out there where they're actively working towards, helping individuals. There's even one that I watched where a guy was talking about the Golden Gate Bridge, how many people in the course of a year jump off of it. And they don't die immediately. Their bones crush when they hit the water and they suffer. And they even talk an experience like this one kid where an officer was just driving by and was able to talk him off, killing himself. And these are the kind of people that are out there really trying to bring about, ending the stigma throughout the rest of the world. In our community, it's just starting. Like even Jamaica a couple years ago decided to have something more in regards to the psychiatric side because a number of males were killing themselves. Because there's never been an outlet to process these kind of things. It's not being weak. It's not being emotional. It's not being a punk. I mean, if anybody decides that they feel like I'm a punk, come see me. Like straight up and down. You're going to get that Bronx side. And if you get a Jamaican side, it's even worse. Go, run.
There you go.
But it's like it has nothing to do with that. You don't know what people are going through. Just like when someone who might be typical instead of atypical like myself, they lose their job, they start to feel depressed. You have the comfort of being able to change that situation and get out of that. There's people like myself where there is no cure. There is no cure. It's a matter of taking it day by day and going on from there.
Wow. Does your kids know about your dynamic?
Yeah.
They do?
Yeah. I mean, I've, kind of versed them, on that and let them know the full history, not per se, not till you truly, they're old enough to truly understand.
How old are they?
One is just turned 14 and the other one's about to turn 10.
Okay. So it's about that age, the 14-year is about that age when you discovered.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, so, kind of have to pay attention to those kind of things. But I even pay attention to the people that I see out there where it's weird. It's like a magnet. 1 in every 4 person out there suffers from some type of mental illness. And by me, and one of the most freeing things for me after the year of hell, it was being open about it. And then I was able to interact with more and more people. And the moment that I really didn't feel alone, I guess I should really finish the story. So in the course of that same week, of course, I called my mother. She told me to go to the emergency room. Went there, told the doctor what's going on. They decided to do what's called a 1013 on me, in which they pretty much ship you off to a facility. Okay. And you stay at that facility under psychiatric advisement. It was horrible. I hated it.
Really?
And things like that. But the key benefit that I took away from it was that I actually was around people who were like me, and I didn't have to explain every little thing because they understood. Wow. And forget the psychiatrists and everything else. Most of them were worthless. And the therapists that were there, the ones that were in training, it was the staff that worked there. Miss Jan was one of them. She, was really, helpful in that period. And also one of the young ladies that was starting out and was like more, this is like part of her endeavor to become full-time as a therapist and exercises and just being around those people. And it's like, okay, you realize you're really not alone. It's really a matter if you're going to be brave enough to open yourself up to the world and, interact with other people like you.
Wow. How long did you stay there?
6 days.
Okay.
I pretty much, to get out, I had to lie.
Wow.
Because they asked the same questions all the time, and I had to make it seem like I was fine. And, that was the beginning point of the year. And then, I was in a destructive, tailspin all the way up until the cool effect. That same night, I was in a bad car accident.
Really?
Yeah, only came out with a little scratch. But, it didn't really hit me until then. It really hit me when my family couldn't find me and everyone was, assuming the worst of what might have happened. And then a lot of people that commit suicide, they don't actually see what the after effect is of how it hits those around you. I was able to see it real life, real time from the first incident and now this. And that's when I started to do things, that really kind of put me where I am right now.
Okay. Wow. Now, I've known you for, years from the party scene and stuff like that. So when you made the post was when I thought about it, obviously, like I thought about it for a couple of days before I called you or get in contact with you to find out if you want to come on. What made you decide to make that post?
I make that post every year.
Okay.
It's like after that year when everything happened, I make that post every year because it's kind of like you have a rebirth. You have a birthday every year, and I don't want to forget, and I don't want people to forget. Now it's not like I have a huge following.
Right.
I mean, as run to people and stuff like that, exchange and things like that, but still, I'm sharing my story. Even if you look at my profile, it put, I'm just trying to end the stigma. It's like if someone sees me who by, typical terms is successful, high paying job, all these other things that, everyone aspires to have is going through this. And, just to let them know, like, hey, even someone like me who on paper is, spotless, no criminal record, no nothing like that, or anything else going on, that I suffer from this, that I have those moments, that I've been going through this, to pretty much open up myself to the world. And there have been individuals in the community that have reached out to me because they're not ready to be public about it. Yeah, they have to have an outlet where they ask me about what medications I've taken, or they will say they have a friend who's going through something, and they would reach out. They want to know what they can do to be supportive for that person. And I just kind of give advice in that standpoint, and direct them in a particular direction that might be useful for them, because not everyone is willing to just stand out there, be on camera, be out there on Front Street. But it's like, what else do I have to lose?
I mean, that was my apprehension. I mean, you've never struck me as a person who is a destructive person, but that was my apprehension in the first place, to reach out to you, because I'm like, does he want, he put it out there, but does he really want to put it out there? Does he want to go on camera and talk about it, and people can put a face to the actions? What made you decide to come on here to talk about this, though?
You know what? It's one of those things. And the movie Zombieland, there's like a line that always sticks with me. Even said it in the training class at the job yesterday. Either you nut up or shut up. I mean, and something that you even said to me, if this interview can help one person, save one life, take the burden off of that person, then why not? It's not going to be the same for everyone. It's going to be different depending on your situation and what you're feeling at that time. For me, the more introspective look at myself, learning about what things particularly trigger me, why they trigger me, analyzing that, those things have worked to, kind of help me. Not on any medication. I'm doing this right now out of sheer will.
No medication?
Medication dulls me. I'm smart.
Gotcha.
I don't like to feel not smart.
Gotcha.
So, and I don't like to feel numb to the world. I can numb myself by suppression. I don't want to do that. What I do is, when I have episodes or when I'm feeling something, I now allow them to fully embrace it and allow it to pass through of its own course. So I'm not building that ball and compressing over time like I was doing before. Now I'm allowing it to just kind of go through and dissipate on its own.
That takes a lot of strength, I would think.
It initially, as learning the process, like I said, this is something that works for me. It does take a lot, because there are those days where it's just like super overwhelming. But if you don't release it, it's only it's like poison. Are you going to keep the poison in you, or are you going to allow it to pass through?
Gotcha.
So I just have to allow it to pass through.
Is there any groups that you're a part of, any networking that you're a part of that you might want to share?
No network groups in regards to this. I mean, at one time, I was looking for different, groups out there in a sense. But what I found is, like, even you see my core crew, a crew of people that I'm with.
Same guys all the time.
Yeah, those guys are, ultra supportive and everything else. So, even if I'm going through something, I would, reach out in the chat saying, hey, this is what, is going on. And they know, they're on standby if something was, to happen. And even, I have like a core set of people that I trust with that. Even at my job, everyone knows, my condition and what I'm going through, because I don't hide it. So if people want to be there, want to be around, want to be there in my life for that kind of stuff, then you now have the choice. It's no longer me hiding it and dealing with it. And then when things happen, they're like, oh my gosh, I could have helped. Everybody wants to help until it's really time to, do something to help. And that's not even with this situation in general. If you're not going to be there for somebody, the best thing you can do is exit.
Yeah.
is just exit. Don't give them the false sense because you're just trying to placate them and just trying to feel good about yourself. Like, yes, I said I'm going to be there for them, and then they call you, and they're pretty much on the ledge, and you do nothing because you're stuck in your own little world being selfish.
Wow. Now I know you work out a lot, but other than the physical side of it, does that help you mentally as well?
There are studies proven that at least 15 minutes of activity a day does help to subside some of the things associated with it. I mean, I'll just get in my car, drive, listen to music, or I don't play video games much anymore, but I might, pick up a game and just kind of get lost in that. I just started reading again, different books. There's different podcasts that I listen to. I do, like I said, I do go out.
I see you out.
Yeah,
which is a good, it's a good getaway.
But it's not even a lot of times now. It's not even for the music because the music is really pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But just even for the fellowship with the my core crew that I'm associated with and hang out with. Just like we even hiked the mountain, and that's one thing that really helped a while ago was just going up the mountain every week.
Wow.
And just kind of staying up there, the physical activity, yes, but just it's kind of staying up there, just talking, just having that outlet where you can be who you are and not worry about, oh, let me not say this because that might turn that person off or they might get worried or things of that nature. But having, in essence, a safe environment.
Wow. Now, as you said earlier, there's a lot of folks in the community that are suffering silently. What's the best advice do you think you can give to those folks?
Well, good question. I mean, the best advice is if you're suffering silently, go see a therapist. Let that be the initial starting point to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Go see a therapist. It's someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family, doesn't know anyone, so you don't have to worry about it making it back to anyone that you're associated with, and just speak openly and freely and see what they have to say. That's really the best advice that I can give. It might be something deeper where you might need medication, you might not need medication. I made a personal choice not to do medication and just doing this off of sheer will once again. No longer taking that energy that I used to suppress, all these things that I was going through, and now taking it, understanding it so I'm able to, get ahead of things and use that energy to help dissipate it and understand like, hey, this is a part of me. Just like what I'm going to cut my arm off? No, I can't. So I have to learn to live with it, day by day. And some days are better than other, but still, for anyone else out there, your path is going to be different than mine.
Right.
Everyone is like your fingerprint. Your path is going to be different, but start with therapy. I will say there was a therapist I went to years ago was, able to make some really good breakthroughs in regards to that, and just having someone to talk to, because that's a lot of time a lot of people just want a safe place where they can talk to someone and express what they're going through and not deal with, the bullshit judgment that most of us have to go through.
I mean, it's so taboo in the black community and in the Caribbean community, more so than even the black community. So, I just want to thank you because, I was apprehensive about reaching out to you because, again, of how people are, and I didn't want you to think, okay, he's trying to take advantage of the fact that that's not what I'm all about. And that's why I said to you, if it can help one person, I'm from St. Kitts Nevis. A couple of my aunts suffered from mental disorder, and we're back home, we just, oh, they're crazy, and leave it at that. Never looked into what they were going through, and both of them wind up dying. So it hits close to home for me, personally. So I wanted to make sure that you reach out to someone or tell someone, because I was guilty of saying, no, they're crazy. I was a little boy, but I was guilty of saying they're crazy, and I look back at that now and I always regretted it. So I wanted to, at least if I can help one person, like I told you, with this interview, with just having a talk, I wanted to do that, and I wanted you to talk about it, and I wanted you to talk about it in your true feelings, and I think you have today. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really do appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you reaching out.
No problem. Any final words you want to say?
There's actually another Instagram page that I follow, which they have a lot of very, good, concise, useful information where people can ingest really quickly. No affiliation with them whatsoever. The Real Depression Project That's actually at the Real Depression Project. They have like a lot of snippets would kind of go through, traumas, anxiety, precursors, what to do if someone's, that is going through depression, if you're going through it, self-care, all these different things. But my particular message is it's not a death sentence. It's not a curse. There's nothing wrong with you. You are exactly the way you're supposed to be. Not everyone is meant to be the same. And, if you ever feel the need to, like it's too much, just just go to therapy, see what it's like. Hey, maybe your experience might be like mine, where if you're no longer hiding it, it has more benefits than, having to suppress and no one really knowing what's going on. And honestly, if you see me out there in the streets and stuff like that at different things, just pull me to the side and say, hey, and just talk to me. I mean, I've been, dealing with this for 27 years knowingly, about to hit 3 decades soon. So I've accumulated a lot of information in regards to this, as, well as I've been down there. I've been on the edge and had to, pull myself back and have to now, find different ways of doing things where if I can't talk, I send a message, I communicate, I find some way to communicate to kind of deal with things. But it's like, honestly, once you kill yourself, if it's successful, there's other individuals that are going to have to, deal with the cost of that pain. But if it's unsuccessful, where a lot of people is unsuccessful, they're still here, and they have to now deal with the physical infliction they've done on them. And, it's like, there's no need to hide. There really isn't. It's like 1 out of every 4 people is one of us. And I've encountered so many great people, and I'm going to say this, some of the best people I've encountered suffer from mental illness, because they know what it's like to feel pain and sadness, and they don't want other people to feel that way. So they go above and beyond to make sure that you don't feel what they feel. Mm-hmm. So that's really...
Richie, I want to thank you, man. I really do appreciate you. This has been a special edition of Take 5 with Ricovibes, my special guest today, Richie, and I want you guys to make sure you take his advice. Reach out to someone. Everything he said, rewind it if you have to, and play it over, but make sure you take his advice, because we want you here to make sure that you're good for your family and your loved ones. Once again, yours truly, Ricovibes, Take 5. We'll be back with another episode real soon.
Thoughts of suicide may feel impossible to overcome, but with help and support, you can find hope and meaning. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK to speak to a counselor, or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even if it feels like it, you're not alone.